live on the Audacity of Mediocrity. And this came to me after I watched the opening or the constitutional arguments yesterday related to the impeachment. And as I said, this is not about the impeachment, but about what I saw in the process. And so what I saw, and why I call it the Audacity of Mediocrity, hi Gotti, is that so Bruce Castor, who was one of the attorneys for Donald Trump, what he is the epitome of the audacity of mediocrity. What he did was to show up, one, unprepared, right? But he was totally unbothered because he knew that he would get the benefit of the doubt. And so when I talk about the audacity of mediocrity, it's that this man who was going to appear in front of probably the whole world, right, as people are watching, he did not think that he had to be the best. He didn't think that he had to be perfect. He didn't think that he wasn't good enough. He didn't think, what were people going to think? He didn't care that, he was going to be rambling. He didn't care that he was going to be talking about record players and putting needles on record players and talking about Nebraska and in the middle of his presentation, not even knowing what he was talking about or where he was going. He, as a man, showed up in that space because he felt that he could and that he should, and he did, right? He also understood, though, that in that mediocrity, right, that audacity of being able to do that, he knew that he could be totally unbothered and do that. And he also knew that people would give him grace and the benefit of the doubt. So if you listened to people talk about him afterwards, right, they did talk about how bad he was and how unprepared he was, but you also heard a lot of people giving him excuses and making excuses for the way that he was unprepared, the way that he was just meandering all over the place, right? They said, oh, well, he just came on the case 2 days ago, right? He just got this information. No trial lawyer worth their salt, right, who cares, would just show up like that. Any trial lawyer knows how to really quickly synthesize information. I've had to do trials when I was a public defender. We would be prepared for one trial and we would get into the courtroom and the state attorney would say, yeah, well, we dismissed that case, or our officer is not here, so now we're going to do this case. And you best believe we had to be prepared to do that case. I wasn't going to get grace. My client was not going to be like, oh, well, you only had 5 minutes to prepare for this. Don't worry about it, right? But that man, what he showed yesterday was the audacity of mediocrity, which is something that as women, we don't embrace. Now, I don't want you to embrace mediocrity. That's not what I'm telling you to embrace. What I want you to embrace is being unbothered. What I want you to embrace is understanding that preparation doesn't mean perfection. So he didn't even care about being prepared. We care as women about being prepared, but we also take ourselves out of so many opportunities because we feel that we have to show up as being every and anything, right? And that if we are not perfect, I suffer from perfection. If we don't show up as perfect, then we are not going to show up at all. If he worried about that, he would not have shown up yesterday, right? And he knew that he would get grace. And I know that as women, we don't get the same grace. But what I want you to understand is that you can show up even though you're not perfect. I want you to be prepared. And I want you to be unbothered by what other people think about you. You all hear me say this all the time. What other people think about you is not your business. That's their business, right? If they have negative thoughts of you, if they think that you're not good enough or why is she here, who cares what they think? You know that I say I belong everywhere I am, but I don't belong everywhere. And so if I was not prepared as a trial lawyer, now I would not have shown up in that space because I don't belong there. I don't belong there because I was not being my best self in that place. So if you have the thought that you don't belong there because it is not in alignment with you giving your best performance or you doing or being aligned with your purpose, that's one thing. if you don't show up and you don't do the things that you're supposed to do because you fear what other people are going to think about you, though you know that you're a badass, that's a whole nother thing. And so when I talk about this audacity of mediocrity, I want you to look at that and think about what do you have the audacity to do. If y'all listen to Donna, sometimes she talks about having ovarian audacity and testicular fortitude, right? For him, he had testicular fortitude to show up like that, to show up unprepared, to just be totally unbothered about, whether he was going to look crazy or not, right? Whether he was going to be rambling or not, whether he was going to be arguing the right things, because he was even arguing cases the wrong way. They were quoting people incorrectly, to the point where one of the professors, I think he's a professor, that they quoted, had to tweet and then come on the shows at night to correct them. He didn't care about that. I want you to care about your credibility. I want you to care about your integrity. I want you to care about your character. What I don't want you to care about is what other people think about you and your abilities. I want you to understand that you are a badass, that you can show up, that you just need to be prepared, that you don't need to be perfect. But I want you to take the audacity, not the audacity of mediocrity. I want you to take the audacity of badassery, and I want you to show up every single day and understand that you belong everywhere that you are.